Hi there, this is Manuela. Some of you know me since 20 years. I'm a walking coach. I take people out in nature to walk, and I also coach online via telephone and WhatsApp. The people who come to me are usually on the edge of burnout, depression, addiction, just not feeling right. And they have realized that if anything changes, it starts from within. And I accompany them on their way. A few years back, I went to the Amazon rainforest to work with shamans. The idea was that I should translate. There were people from all over the world coming to these ayahuasca shamans in the middle of the jungle between Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. You could only get there by plane to Iquitos and then an hour and a half boat's ride. And I stayed there for 3 months. The intention was translating, and in exchange, I would learn something. I found this most interesting because I also work with people who have chronic diseases, depression, sleeping disorders, obsessive stuff, and things like that. So I went there and I did not attempt to take ayahuasca because I can't even smoke pot without leaving the body, kind of thing. I'm very sensitive to such things. I don't do drugs. And getting there the first evening, bam, I started. It was like out of the blue. I participated in a ceremony and did ayahuasca trips. Altogether, I did 19 ayahuasca trips. And it felt like a calling. I have to do this now, so I did it. And it was quite interesting what I observed, not only during my ayahuasca trips, but also all the different people who came there to the jungle for their healing. And a couple years later, I decided I gotta write it all down so it doesn't get lost, right? So I took my little diary that I maintained while I was there and started writing it down. And then I realized I should write down the background story, my background story as well, for other people to be able to benefit from this information as well. And at the end, it was a book. And a little time later, an American publisher decided to publish my book. And just recently, they did an audiobook. So it's really easy to, if you're interested in ayahuasca and healing and whether this is the way to healing, to figuring out who you are, what's blocking you and all these things, you might be interested in it. It's called Headless Chicken. I'm going to put the link below. Well, to give you a little bit of an idea, people come to me now after this asking, is ayahuasca the remedy to heal and to find out the answers and to realize who you are and to understand how life works and spirituality and all these things? And should I take ayahuasca? Personally, I couldn't tell anybody what to do anyway. However, for me, it's like this. If you feel a serious calling, which is not just a fancy curiosity, like trying out another drug, see what you can get out of it for the moment. If you do feel this calling more here than there, I would probably go for it. If you think ayahuasca has all the answers, it's gonna cure you, I don't think this is how it works. The reason being is the real work starts afterwards. You can have insights as much as you want and spiritual glimpses into the spiritual world and how healing works, how life works. But when you come back and just continue with the same patterns and don't work on your state of awareness, I don't think much is changing. For some people, things might change in their state of awareness, but it also happens that it doesn't last long. It's kind of I would say like a lifetime decision. It's like yoga, the yogic way of life. It's not about doing a fancy workshop and getting a certificate or teaching yoga. It's about how you deal with things in every single moment. That's with my work as a walking coach as well, and my personal work as a human being and my lessons to learn and all this. So originally, ayahuasca was not supposed to be taken by everybody. It was only supposed to be taken by the shamans. And they would do the trip, and they would get the insights, and they would put out the energy or receive it. And since, I don't know, 10, 15 years, it's become a real hype and a trend and also a big business. So I would be really careful with whom you deal. I think it's also a little bit dangerous because you're in, let's say, a very strange environment. And you really want to be at a safe place. Where I was, there were always two shamans, and those shamans were from a third generation shamans. And they wouldn't do it just one only to secure the space. Now, what does that mean? I can't even tell you. All I can say, I did feel safe. And there were a couple of scary things happening as well. Some people had bad times and horrible experiences, and they shared with me and I would translate. It was a great learning experience. So I wondered, how come they see things and I see things, and some are beautiful and some are really nasty and ugly and scary, and they totally freak out and I don't. What's going on? Why is that? And so on. And the most interesting thing of all this to me was I was going into ayahuasca ceremonies without having this clear intention. I had just like a calling, wouldn't know what I would expect and so on. And each time it was a different message that I got. Later on, I did the same thing like everybody else, going in there with an intention. So my intention was figuring out what I'm supposed to do, what I'm here for. So I went in there, and the answer I got was play and enjoy. So play and enjoy doesn't quite sound like a job description, correct? So I went back again and again and again. And this is the tricky part. So it might not be addictive, but it's somehow a little bit addictive because I wanted a job description. And it doesn't work like that. It took me a while to understand. And all these things I share in this book called Headless Chicken. So if you're interested, go to Audible or some other online bookstore or audiobook store and download it. I'm going to put the link below. There's also, for those of you who suffer from any kind of disorder, such as eating disorder, depression, addiction, there's a guy, a doctor, very famous doctor in his area. His name is Gabor Mate. I'm going to put the link below. And he's been doing a lot of studies, and he experiments with ayahuasca, and he has had many great results. And you may want to check him out if you do suffer from such situations. I also want to share, I also wrote it in the book, about one girl. She came there in order to cure a long-term depression. And her story was she had been misdiagnosed for many years. And, they said, First they said she had eating disorder, then they said she had addiction, smoking too much pot, this and that and don't know what. Eating disorder, pot, what else was it? Oh yeah, at the end they said she was depressed. She had a depression and undiagnosed depression since childhood and all kinds of things. And she went from doctors to doctors, and she was in despair, really. Before she came there, she went to another ayahuasca retreat, and she went to the other ayahuasca retreat for months. And she came there, and she participated in every ceremony. And it was very interesting to observe that it didn't seem to work. She just kept going and kept going and kept going. And sometimes she had a little bit of a glimpse and then she would fall back. It was quite frustrating to observe. And for me, as a coach, I like to see the whole picture. People, what they think, how they feel, how they show up, what their body shows. That's a bit my job, to look at the whole picture. And I had a feeling that this girl wasn't quite ready. She wasn't ready, and she couldn't do anything about being ready either to be totally cured. There was still some kind of an unknown benefit from holding on to the problem. Yeah, it sounds horrible. I know you have this big hope, and it just doesn't want to work out the way you want. So for me, to conclude this little video, ayahuasca can be really helpful. You can have some insights that you would have never really understood or grasp without blanking out the ego mind for a period of time. But what you do with it afterwards, let's say if you keep on judging everything with the same mindset as before, nothing much is gonna change. And this, it's like cracking the nut and allowing some light come in and out. So your spark can shine. That's a bit what it is about. That's how I feel. And now what can you do in order to not hold on to some old patterns, despite the fact that you've seen how it all works and so on? I do think it's a lifelong process, and it takes awareness. And there are certain things like a yogic lifestyle or awareness tool or mindfulness tools, walking meditation, 100,000 things there are. You got to figure out what works for you and let go of the idea that it has to be hard. I am totally convinced, absolutely convinced, and I've experienced it myself and seen it in so many people. Changes can happen like this. So if you got interested, check it out, Headless Chicken and Gabor Mate. I'm going to put the link below. Thank you for sticking with me and listening to this. Bye now.